There had been 3 children in the old white stuccoed farmhouse near Arpinum. Gaius Marius was the eldest, followed by his sister Maria and his brother Marcus. They were rural nobility, hearty country squires. In their little domain, they were kings. But in the eyes of Rome, they were barely on the map.
Steady your breathing, Gaius. If you lunged like that in the hills of Samnium, a hillman would have your liver before you could blink.
The Samnites are long gone, Father. It's the Celts and the Iberians I'll be facing. They say that Scipio himself is looking for fresh blood for the Spanish front.
Scipio, you've been listening to those Gratidii boys again. Stick to the vineyards, son. We Marii are Arpinates. We grow the grain that feeds the Republic.
Cato sat in the Senate, and he came from Tusculum.
Tusculum is 15 miles from the Servian walls. You can smell the Tiber from there. From here, you can only smell sheep and damp earth. Be content. I've already spoken to the Granius family in Puteoli. Their daughter is young, but she's from good stock. Wealthy merchants. You'll have a comfortable life here, Gaius. A quiet life.
But Gaius Marius did not want a quiet life. While his bride-to-be waited in Puteoli to grow up, Marius fell in love, not with a woman, but with the iron rhythm of the legion. Enrolled as a cadet on his 17th birthday, he served continuously. By 23, he had traded the stuccoed farmhouse for the grit of the frontier, posted to the personal staff of the legendary Scipio Aemilianus before the walls of Numantia. At Numantia, Marius befriended Publius Rutilius Rufus and Prince Jugurtha of Numidia. They were all the same age and stood high in the esteem of Scipio Aemilianus, who called them the Terrible Trio. None were from the Roman inner circle. Jugurtha was a foreigner. Rutilius Rufus's family were Senate newcomers, and Marius was a country squire. "He just knows what to do and how to do it," Scipio Aemilianus would say of Marius with a hint of envy. Scipio was a master of organization and planning, but Marius was a natural soldier. At 17, he had been a thin, picky eater pampered by his mother. But once he buckled on his bronze cuirass and military boots, he grew in mind and body until he was bigger, stronger, and more independent than anyone else. It was also at Numantia that he met a 17-year-old cadet named Quintus Caecilius Metellus. Young Metellus was a typical member of his house, a plodder with no flair, yet convinced he could do everything superbly. Scipio Aemilianus eventually handed the boy over to the tender mercies of the Terrible Trio. They took it out on him, toughly. When Numantia finally fell and was extirpated, the army was allowed to get drunk. The trio found young Metellus celebrating his 18th birthday and decided on a joke. They threw the birthday boy into a pigsty. Metellus emerged from the muck, sober and spitting spite.
You pathetic upstarts. You're nothing but a greasy foreigner, Jugurtha, not fit to lick a Roman's boots, and you're a jumped-up favour courier, Rutilius. As for you, Gaius Marius, you're nothing more than an Italian hayseed with no Greek. How dare you? I am a Caecilius Metellus, and we were kings in Etruria before Rome was ever thought of.
I appreciate the sentiment, Quintus Caecilius, but the trouble is you've got a big fat pig turd on your head instead of a crown, O King of Etruria. Go have a bath, then tell us again.
Metellus brushed his head furiously, too enraged for advice.
Rutilius, what sort of name is that for the Senate rolls? Oscar nobodies, peasants.
Oh, come now. My Etruscan is good enough to translate Metellus. It means freed from service as a mercenary.
That was the breaking point. Metellus launched himself at Rutilius, and the 4 of them rolled in the mire until Metellus finally escaped.
You'll pay for this.
Oh, pull your head in.
Years later, Gaius Marius was back in Rome, attempting the treacherous climb of the cursus honorum, the ladder of political offices. He had entered politics because Scipio Aemilianus told him he was too good to waste his life as a country squire. But the road from Arpinum to the Senate house was paved with glass. He had scraped into the Senate and even secured a tribunate of the plebs, ironically with Metellan support. But the moment Marius showed his independence by vetoing a law pushed by the Metelli, the bridge was burned. That veto cost him yours. The Metelli blocked his path to the aedileship and fought his praetorship with every slander imaginable. That he was a deviant, that he was un-Roman, and that he spoke the language of the elite with a peasant's twang. In response, Marius simply stopped speaking Greek altogether, leaning into the rugged Italian identity they so despised. He finally secured the praetorship, finishing dead last in the polls, and was immediately posted to further Spain as governor. The Senate thought they were getting rid of him. They expected the tribes of Lusitania to break his spirit. They were wrong. The Spaniards excelled at a war of ambush and assassination, never deploying for a fair battle. Marius, the quintessential soldier, decided he could play the same game. He fought them with raid and devastation, and he won. But Spain gave him more than a military reputation. It gave him the one thing Rome respected as much as blood: wealth. Since the Punic Wars, Rome had divided the peninsula into nearer and further Spain. As the frontier advanced, the Roman conquerors tripped over richer and richer deposits of ore: gold, silver, and iron. Marius acquired grants of ore-bearing land and partnerships in shipping and banking. He got rich, then he got richer. He returned to Rome an imperator, a commander entitled to the highest honor a soldier could dream of, a triumph through the city streets. He had the gold, he had the military record, and he had the ambition to be consul. Since his return to Rome, Marius had found that the battlefields of the Forum were far more treacherous than the hills of Lusitania. His political career had stalled, caught in the iron grip of the Metellus faction. The year was 108 BC. As a former praetor, Gaius Marius was required to join the inauguration of the new consuls, the two men who would lead Rome for the coming year. He was dressed in the toga praetexta, its purple border a mark of the high office he had held 5 years prior. On his feet were the dark red senatorial shoes, fastened with the ivory, crescent-shaped buckles of a man of rank. But to Marius, these symbols felt like hollow consolation prizes. By the strict traditions of the cursus honorum, he should have been wearing the solid purple of a consul 3 years ago. He stood in the morning mist, watching the elite move with an ease he would never possess. He was a novus homo, a new man. In the eyes of the Palatine families, the name Marius was a blank slate. He was an upstart from the rural town of Arpinum, a military man who spoke Latin with a thick country inflection, and who stubbornly refused to speak a word of Greek. It didn't matter that his silver mines in Spain had made him wealthier than half the Senate combined. It didn't matter that he could out-command every man in the Forum on a battlefield. In Rome, blood was the only currency that truly mattered, and his was considered common. Marius looked around at the sea of glazed faces in the morning mist. There were no giants here, no Gracchi brothers. Aside from men like Scaurus or Rutilius Rufus, the Senate was filled with little men who only held power because of the names they inherited. They all dreamed of being the princeps Romae, the first man in Rome. The first man wasn't a king or a despot. He was a man who stood above his equals through sheer auctoritas, a uniquely Roman blend of power, fame, and moral authority. Rome had not seen a true first man since the death of Scipio Aemilianus 19 years ago. The morning's religious ceremonies were finally ending. Lucius Caecilius Metellus Dalmaticus, the Pontifex Maximus, finished the prayers. The senior consul, Minucius Rufus, called the Senate to session inside the Temple of Jupiter. Same old Senate, same old Rome, same old Gaius Marius. Marius felt the clock ticking. He feared he would die as he lived, an upstart from the pig pens of Arpinum. As the herald summoned them to move, Marius's gaze caught that of Gaius Julius Caesar, and it looked as if Caesar was making his way toward him. Caesar was a senior member of the prestigious Julii clan. Though he was a backbencher in terms of current power, he was a true patrician. He was tall, silver-haired, and possessed the effortless grace of a man who could trace his lineage back to the goddess Venus. A man like Caesar didn't need to be a snob. His status was undisputed.
Which Metellus is going to harangue us today?
Caesar asked with a knowing smile as they climbed the temple steps together.
The one without an honorary surname yet. The younger brother of the high priest, Quintus Caecilius Metellus.
And why him?
Because he plans to run for consul next year, he has to start making the right noises now.
Marius stepped aside, allowing the older patrician to enter the temple of Jupiter first.
I believe you are correct. I wonder, Gaius Marius, if you would care to share my dinner tomorrow afternoon.
Marius blinked in surprise. A Julius Caesar inviting a Marius to dinner? He knew Caesar must want something, but the Julii were not known for shoddy dealings.
Thank you, Gaius Julius. I would be very pleased to attend.
Marius stood before the polished silver of his mirror. His hair was thinning on top, but he still had enough dark brown curls to brush forward into a respectable coiffure. He was no beauty, never had been, and he knew he was no rival for the effortless grace of a man like Gaius Julius Caesar. Yet he was taking unusual pains with his appearance for a simple family meal. He had chosen his Chian outfit, a tapestry tunic and a long draped overgarment in a spectacle of gold and purple lavishness. He had bought it years ago, dreaming of the elite dinner parties he would host as a consul. Now, it was a costume for a future that seemed to be slipping away. It did not occur to Marius to seek out his wife, Grania, before he departed. He had forgotten her years ago, if he had ever truly remembered her at all. Their marriage had been arranged in the sexless limbo of childhood, and had lingered there for 25 childless years. To Marius, a man of action, physical needs were something satisfied on campaign with a captive girl or a housemaid. But Grania? Cohabitating with her was like leading a route march through an impenetrable fog. She was a woman of amorphous presence, a patch of extra moisture in a generally clammy substrate. He didn't pity her, nor did he try to understand her. She was simply his wife, a drab, chaste woman from Puteoli, who had never possessed the plumage of a beauty, even in her youth. He stepped out of his own luxurious house and made his way over to the more modest Julii household. He forgot that he was wearing a fortune on his back. Over his gold and purple finery, he threw his old campaigning segum, a thick, greasy, malodorous wool cape designed to keep out the perishing winds of the Alpine passes.
Come in. Welcome, Gaius Marius.
Gaius Julius Caesar welcomed his guest in person, holding out his finely made hands to receive the heavy, rain-soaked segum. He didn't toss the greasy garment to a slave as if afraid the smell would cling to his skin. Instead, he fingered the wool with genuine respect before handing it over carefully.
I'd say this has seen a few campaigns.
It's the only segum I've ever owned. My father gave it to me brand new when I turned 17 and went off to be a cadet. Ligurian wool, of course.
Marius strolled beside his host toward the dining room, completely oblivious to the fact that his expensive gold and purple Chian drape had flopped the wrong way over his shoulder. He also didn't seem to notice the smallness and simplicity of the Caesar household compared to his own marble halls.
I'll tell you what, Gaius Julius, when it came my turn to outfit legions, I made sure my men got that exact same cape. No use expecting a man to fight if he's chilled to the bone, and I didn't charge him more than the standard military issue price either. A commander worth his salt absorbs the extra cost from the booty.
And you are certainly worth your salt, I know. Please, take the place of honor.
Servants removed their shoes and offered socks. Marius declined the fumes of a charcoal brazier, so both men settled onto the couches, adjusting their bolsters to support their left elbows. The wine steward stepped forward.
My sons will join us shortly, and the ladies just before we eat. But first, Gaius Marius, I hope you won't deem me stingy with my wine if I ask that we take it well watered tonight. I have a reason, though I cannot explain it just yet. Simply put, it behooves us both to remain in full possession of our wits. Besides, the ladies become uneasy when they see their men drinking unwatered wine.
Wine bibbing isn't one of my failings. If a man cares enough for his company to accept an invitation, his tongue should be used for talking, not lapping. There. Fill it to the brim with water. I am mightily intrigued, Caesar. What is this reason of yours?
In the fullness of time, my friend, you shall know it all.
A silence fell. The two men sipped their wine-flavored water. They were strangers, really. Merely colleagues who had nodded to each other in the Senate for years. Without the social lubricant of strong wine, the start was difficult. Caesar cleared his throat and set his cup down.
I gather, Gaius Marius, that you are not enthused about this year's crop of magistrates.
Ye gods, no. Any more than you are, I think.
They're a poor lot. Sometimes I wonder if we are wrong to limit the offices to a single year. Perhaps when we find a truly good man, we should leave him there longer to actually get things done.
A temptation. And if men weren't men, it might work, but there is an impediment.
An impediment?
Whose word are we taking that a good man is actually good? His own. The Senate's, the voters, those incorruptible fellows who are totally impervious to bribes.
True enough. I thought Gaius Gracchus was a good man. I supported him for his second term as tribune and his third. Not that the support of a patrician counts for much in the plebeian assembly.
And there you have it. Whenever Rome produces a good man, he's cut down. Why? Because he cares more for Rome than he does for his family, his faction, or his finances.
I don't think that's confined to Romans. People are people. Envy and greed look the same in a Greek, a Carthaginian, or a Syrian. The only way the best man for the job can keep it long enough to do any real good is to become a king. In fact, if not in name.
And Rome would never condone a king.
Not for 500 years. We grew out of them. Most of the world prefers absolute rule, but not us, nor the Greeks.
That's because Rome and Greece are stuffed with men who consider themselves kings. And we certainly didn't become a democracy when we threw the kings out.
Of course not. True democracy is a Greek philosophic unattainable. Rome is government of the many by the few, the famous families.
And an occasional new man.
And an occasional new man.
The two sons of the Caesar household entered exactly as young men should, manly yet deferential. Sextus, the elder at 25, was tall with tawny bronze hair and grey eyes. The younger, Gaius Julius Caesar Jr., was sturdier and even taller, a golden blonde youth with bright blue eyes. Together, they were as fine a pair of future senators as any father could hope to sire.
You're fortunate in your sons, Gaius Julius.
Yes, I believe I am.
Caesar turned his elbow on the couch, looking at Marius with courteous curiosity.
You don't have sons of your own, do you, Marius?
No. To be honest, we military men are all alike. Our real wife is the army.
That happens.
The pre-dinner talk was cultivated and remarkably kind. Marius was no fool. He knew that in the Roman nobility, the character of the children usually reflected the strength of the mother. He waited with a soldier's curiosity to see the woman who helped anchor this house. Then they entered, Marcia and the two Julias. Marius was momentarily struck dumb. They were ravishing, the mother included. As the servants set upright chairs for them in the center of the U-shaped couches, the The family was complete. Marcia sat opposite her husband. The elder daughter Julia faced Marius, and the younger Julilla sat opposite her brothers. Despite the watered wine and the lack of exotic oysters, it was the best meal Marius had eaten in years. The food was plain, excellently cooked, and, most importantly, undisguised by the pungent fish sauces or bizarre Eastern spices favored by the Roman elite. It was a soldier's feast.
Arpinum, I know this cheese. My father makes it. 2-year-old ewes grazed on the river meadow where the milk grass grows.
How wonderful. I've always been fond of this cheese, Gaius Marius, but from now on, I shall look out for it especially. The cheese of the Marii.
As the meal ended, the women rose to leave. Julia smiled at Marius with genuine liking. She had been a perfect conversationalist, polite when spoken to, but never interrupting her father's discourse. She was peaceful, intelligent, and lovely. But Julilla was different. Marius watched the younger girl leave and felt his hackles rise, a soldier's instinct for a hidden defect. She wasn't stupid, but she was willfully ignorant. She wasn't just vain, she was manipulative. There was something disquieting in her, a lack of something fundamental. Mentally, Marius shrugged. She was a child. She was not his concern.
Now, Gaius Marius, the women are gone, the wine is watered, and I believe we have much to discuss.
Night had fallen. The water clocks began to drip away the hours of darkness, which in midwinter were twice as long as the hours of daylight. For once, the calendar was in step with the seasons, thanks to the fastidiousness of the Pontifex Maximus.
Gaius Julius, it has been a delightful evening, but now tell me why I have had to stay a sober man.
If you don't mind, I'll dismiss the servants first. The wine is within reach, and now that the moment of truth has arrived, we don't need to be so abstemious. They gossip dreadfully, you know, and we have nosy neighbors. Rome is a village when it comes to the Palatine. Besides, servants have feelings. It's better not to involve them.
You ought to have been consul, Gaius Julius, then censor.
I agree, but I haven't the money. I'm closer to 60 than 50. My public career is ossified. No, it is my sons I am concerned with, and their sons.
Marius sat up straight, pouring himself an unwatered draught of a superb vintage Caesar had kept hidden. He looked stunned by the quality.
What is it you want of me?
Help. In return, I will help you. I am offering you whichever of my 2 daughters you prefer. A marriage.
A marriage?
Everyone must take notice of you if your wife is a Julia. You have no children. Any wife you take now must be young and from fertile stock. But if she is a Julia, she is of the highest patrician stock. Your children will have Julian blood. It ennobles you, Gaius Marius. Your name will be enhanced by the dignitas of Rome's most august family. We are descended from Venus through her grandson Iulus, the mother of Romulus and Remus, Rhea Silvia. Her other name was Julia. We were the kings of Alba Longa. When it was sacked, we were brought to Rome to add weight to Rome's claim to head the Latin race. To this day, the priest of the Alban Mount is a Julius.
Caesar smiled with sheer pleasure in his forebears.
Well, Gaius Julius, that certainly is quite the proposal.
I agree. However, I would need some clarifications on a few matters that I presume are just idle gossip.
Such as?
You want to be consul. This is clear, but the rumors say you are a client of the Metelli, that you are their servant.
A slander. I am nobody's client.
I believe you, but the world believes the Metelli. They dislike you personally, and men say it's too deep a dislike to stem merely from a political tweak of the nose.
Oh, it's personal. I threw Dalmaticus's little brother, the one who will be consul next year, into a pigsty at Numantia. Myself, Rutilius Rufus, and King Jugurtha.
Ah, the mystery is solved. But there is another slur. It is said that you are in trade.
How? I am a sleeping partner. I own no stock. I am a provider of capital. I do nothing in business that a Metellus doesn't do.
I agree, but for a new man, company dealings are not wise. You should have stuck to land and property. These are beyond reproach. Your activities are seen as proof that you can never be a Roman nobleman.
And you think marrying your daughter will change that?
It will. You could marry a Cornelia or a Sulpicia, yes, but everyone would know you simply bought the girl. The advantage of a Julia is that we have never sold our daughters. The fact that you are permitted to marry into this house will inform the world that you are deserving of every honor.
Why are you giving me this chance?
2 reasons. First, a premonition. When I saw you yesterday, I knew I was looking at a man who could carry Rome on his back out of a terrible danger. If you are not given the chance, Rome will cease to be. And second, I have reached an age where I must face the fact that I have not provided for my children. I own this house and 500 jugera in the Alban Hills. If I divide that, my sons won't even qualify for the senatorial census. My younger boy Gaius would be penurious. He would become a Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Do you know him?
I do not.
His ghastly stepmother is my neighbor, just on that side of the fence. He's a patrician of impeccable birth, destitute, living with her because his father drank the family fortune. He has no hope of the Senate. I find I care too much for my sons to reduce them to that.
Birth is an accident. Why should it dictate a life?
Why should money? Roman society is flexible, but the struggle to rise from nothing ruins men. My daughters are dowerless, Marius. They have no chance of marrying within their class. I would have to marry them to men I don't like, or fortune hunters.
Caesar slid off the couch, his feet dangling.
Would you mind, Gaius Marius, if we took a stroll in the garden? It's cold, but I can give you a wrap. I'm beginning to feel my bones seizing up.
They walked into a small peristyle garden. Despite the winter, aromatic herbs still thrived, giving off a scent of the countryside. Marius noticed something that gave him a thrill of warmth. Along the edges of the eaves, catching the sun but staying dry, hung hundreds of little bunches of fleabane. It was a small country habit, used to discourage vermin in the clothes chests. Marius hadn't thought there was a household in Rome that still knew of it. It was exactly what his father did in Arpinum. Because they had a guest, the chandeliers in the colonnade burned faintly, and small bronze lamps glowed like amber through their marble sides. The rain had stopped, leaving the air chill and vaporous. Neither man noticed. They paced the walkways with their heads together, standing finally by a dry fountain in the center of the garden.
Are you interested in marrying one of my daughters?
Caesar didn't sound anxious, yet he conveyed anxiety.
Yes, Gaius Julius, I am.
Will it grieve you to divorce your wife?
Not in the least. Now, what do you require of me in return for the gift of your name?
A great deal. You will be admitted to this family as a second father rather than a son-in-law. I expect you to dower my other daughter and contribute to the welfare of both my sons. I want them both to be consuls.
Both?
Sextus will be of age first. I want him to be the first Julian consul in 400 years. I want that distinction for my house. Otherwise, my brother's son, Lucius, will beat him to it by a year. A man should be consul in his proper year. It looks best.
Agreed. They will both have my support.
Wonderful. Have you given any thought into which of my daughters interest you?
Julia. I'll take Julia.
Not the little one? I admit, I'm glad. Julila is 18 months away from a proper marriageable age, but I always thought her the more attractive of the two.
You're her father. No, Gaius Julius, your younger daughter doesn't tempt me. If she isn't wild about her husband, she'll lead him a merry dance. I'm too old for girlish caprices. Julia has sense as good as her looks.
She'll make an excellent consul's wife.
Do you honestly think I'll succeed to be consul?
Certainly, but not straight away. Marry Julia first. Let the people settle. Find yourself a decent war for a couple of years. Offer your services as a senior legate. Seek the consulship in 2 or 3 years.
But I'll be 50. They don't like electing men that far past the proper age.
You're already too old, so what does another year matter? You don't look your age, Marius. You are the picture of health and vigor, a big man. That impresses the voters. If you hadn't crossed the Metelli, you'd have been consul 3 years ago. You'll be consul. Never fear.
And what must I do for your sons, in terms of property?
For my son Gaius, I need enough land to ensure him a seat in the Senate. There are 600 Jugera for sale right now, adjoining my own land in the Alban Hills.
The price?
It's a seller's market. 4 million sesterces, 1 million denarii.
Agreed. But we must keep our dealings secret for now.
Absolutely.
I'll bring the money tomorrow morning in cash.
That is all.
Marius held out his hand. He was committing himself to a union that would cost him at least 10 million sesterces. Caesar took the hand, clasping it warmly.
When may I see her? To talk to her?
Tomorrow afternoon.
Very well. Good night, Gaius Julius.
Good night, Gaius Marius.
Marius stepped out into the piercing cold of a rising north wind. He was 10 million sesterces poorer, but for the first time in his life, the path to the consulship was clear. The Julias shared a small sitting room where they met the next morning to break their fast. Julilla was unusually restless, hopping from one foot to the other, unable to settle.
What is the matter with you? Can't you tell? There's something in the wind. I want to meet Cladilla in the flower market, but I think we're all going to have to stay home for another boring old family conference. You really are unappreciative. How many other girls get to say what they think at a family council? Oh, rubbish, they're boring. We never talk about anything interesting, just servants and unaffordables and tutors. I want to leave school. I'm fed up with Homer and boring old Thucydides. What use are they to a girl? They mark her as cultured. Don't you want a good husband? My notion of a good husband does not include Thucydides. Oh, I want to go out.
Caesar entered, for once ignoring Julilla, his favourite.
Julia, I want to talk to you.
Oh, Tata, not even a good morning kiss?
He glanced at her absently, pecked her on the cheek, and then gave her a distracted smile.
If you can find something to do, my butterfly, how about doing it?
Thank you, Tata. May I go to the flower market and the Porticus Margaritaria?
And how many pearls are you going to buy today?
Thousands.
Caesar slipped his daughter a silver denarius.
It won't buy a pearl, but it might buy a scarf.
Tata, thank you.
Caesar looked kindly at his older daughter. He waited until his wife, Marcia, entered and sat alongside her daughter.
What is it, Gaius?
Caesar didn't sit. He shifted his weight, turning the full beauty of his blue eyes upon Julia.
My dear, did you like Gaius Marius?
Why, yes, Tata. I did. His plain, honest speaking, his lack of affectation. He confirmed what I've always suspected, that the gossip is all spite. He's not an oaf, and he doesn't act like a rustic. He's very intelligent. His Greek accent is a bit rough, but his vocabulary is excellent. I thought his eyebrows were terrifically distinguished, didn't you? His clothes are a bit ostentatious, but I expect that's his wife's fault.
Julia stopped, looking suddenly flustered.
I'm very glad to hear it, because you're going to marry him.
Am I?
Is she?
Yes.
And just when did you arrive at this decision? Where has he even seen Julia to have asked for her?
He didn't ask for her. I offered her to him. That's why I invited him to dinner.
You offered a new man closer to your own age than hers. His choice of our daughters?
Marcia, you know what we're facing. 4 children and not enough money to do the right thing by any of them. 2 boys with the brains to go to the top, and 2 girls with the beauty to marry the best. But no money for the cursus honorum, and no money for dowries.
Marcia's face softened. Her own father had died, leaving her nothing. She knew the sting of a tiny dowry. She had married Caesar for love, but it had always humiliated her that her marriage brought him no financial gain.
Marius needs a patrician wife with impeccable dignitas. He ought to have been consul years ago, but the Metelli blocked him. Our Julia will force Rome to take him seriously. In return, Marius has undertaken to ease our financial difficulties.
Oh, Gaius.
I saw him at the inauguration. The scales fell from my eyes. I knew he was a great man, and that Rome is going to need him. I took the chance.
And our troubles are over?
Yes, he is a man of honor. Today he will bring me 4 million sesterces in cash to buy the land at Bovilli. Enough to ensure young Gaius a seat in the Senate. He will fund the boys' aedileships and their path to the consulship. And he will dower Julilla handsomely.
And what will he do for Julia?
Do for Julia? He's marrying her. It's costing him a fortune to make her his wife, and she's bringing no dowry.
Normally, a girl has her dowry to ensure her financial independence, especially in the event of a divorce. I insist that Gaius Marius dower Julia herself, so she has enough to live on if he ever leaves her.
Marcia, I can't ask the man for more.
I never understand why the world thinks men have better business heads than women. You, my dear husband, are woollier in business than most. Julia is the cause of this change in fortune. We owe it to her to guarantee her future.
I admit you're right, but I really can't ask him for more.
It's all right, truly. I'll ask Gaius Marius about a dowry myself. I'm not afraid to. He'll understand.
Julia, you want to marry him?
Of course I do, Mama. I think he's wonderful. Young men are boring. They remind me of my brothers. I would much rather marry someone like Gaius Marius. He will love me and never regret the expense. I've been dreading the marriage you would arrange for me. But last night I thought to myself, wouldn't it be lovely if you found me someone like him? He isn't like you, Tata. And yet he is fair and kind and honest.
Isn't it a rare pleasure to discover that one genuinely likes one's child? To love them is natural, but liking has to be earned.
Two encounters with women in the same day unnerved Gaius Marius more than the prospect of fighting an enemy army. The first was his intended bride. The second, later that day, would be his current wife. He arrived at Caesar's house in mid-afternoon, clad in his purple-bordered toga. He did not carry the literal weight of 1,000,000 denarii, which would have required 160 men to carry. Instead, he brought a bank draft on Pergamum parchment.
I've done everything as discreetly as possible. I've arranged for the deposit of 200 talents of silver in your name. No one can trace it to me without wasting more time than a banker allows for mere curiosity.
Which is just as well. It would look as if I've accepted a bribe. If I weren't such senatorial small fry, the bank would alert the urban praetor.
I doubt anyone has ever bribed with so much, even a consul with huge clout.
I hadn't thought of it in talents. Ye gods, Marius, I asked you for the earth. Are you sure it hasn't left you short?
Not at all. And if the land goes for the price you quoted, I've given you 40 talents too much. That represents your younger daughter's dowry.
I don't know how to thank you. I've kept telling myself I'm not selling my daughter, but at this moment, it seems suspiciously like it. Truly, I wouldn't sell her. I believe her future with you will be illustrious. I believe you'll treasure her.
I will take care of her, Gaius Julius.
I won't rest until this is in the bank. Julia turns 18 in May, but let's not wait for the bad luck of June. We shall set the ceremony for April. Wait here. I'll send her to you.
Marius waited in the tidy room, gripped by a terrifying anxiety. He prayed the girl wasn't unwilling. How could she welcome this? An elderly Italian hayseed with no Greek. What a husband for a Julia. The afternoon sun entered the study like a fanfare of trumpets. Julia stood in the light, her hand out, smiling.
Gaius Marius.
Julia, your father has told you.
Oh, yes.
Her smile grew. There was nothing girlish or bashful about her. She appeared regally poised, a princess in her power, yet subtly submissive.
You don't mind?
I'm delighted. Gaius Marius. Don't look so worried. I really, truly, honestly am delighted.
She curled her fingers around his palm and squeezed. Marius took her hand between both of his, staring at her perfect, creamy fingers.
I'm an old man.
Then I must like old men, because I do like you. My father is the gentlest of men, not a tyrant. He would never have forced me to this.
But surely there's a young man you like better.
Not at all. Young men are too like my brothers.
But my eyebrows.
I think they're wonderful. My father told me he would like the ceremony to be arranged for April, but I'd rather move it forward to March. I'd like to be married on the festival of Anna Perenna.
The first full moon. That's tied to the old New Year. The day following it is unlucky. Don't you fear the omens?
No, there are none but good omens in marrying you.
She put her left hand beneath his and looked up at him gravely.
My mother has given me only a short time alone with you. There is a matter we must clarify. My dowry.
Her smile faded into a look of serious, Roman aloofness.
I do not anticipate an unhappy marriage, for I see nothing in you to doubt your integrity. But my mother is adamant. She says I must be dowered in case you ever decide to divorce me. My father is too overwhelmed by your generosity to ask for more. So I am asking.
I see.
Would it be possible to lay a sum aside? If we do not divorce, it is ours. If we do, it is mine. You must be sure I can't spend it while we are married. That way, you'll know I'm honourable.
I think that's possible. But it isn't necessary to tie it up. I'm happy to give you a sum in your own name now.
Just as well you chose me and not Julilla. No, thank you, Gaius Marius. I prefer the honourable way. Now, will you kiss me before my mother comes?
The demand for a dowry hadn't rattled him, but this did. Marius knew nothing of young girls' expectations. Should he be passionate, chaste? He stepped closer, leaning his head down. She was unusually tall. Her lips were cool and soft. He shut his eyes and simply let her lead. When her hands struggled to be free, he let go, but she immediately lifted her arms and wound them around his neck. The kiss warmed. The vast folds of the toga prevented too much intimacy, which suited them both. Marcia entered noiselessly. They broke apart, perfectly composed. Marius noted that Marcia looked distinctly grim. She clearly would have preferred a noble son-in-law, even a poor one. But Marius was too happy to care.
I asked about the dowry, Mama. It's all arranged.
That was my doing, not my daughter's. We thank you, Gaius Marius. You have been most generous.
I disagree, Marcia. It's you who've been generous. Julia is a pearl beyond price.
Marius walked home with a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. To be consul, to own a heart as pure and blue-blooded as Julia's. He felt a gratitude that made him want to shower her with precious things. But first, there was Grania. She was in, of course, waiting as she did every day, driving her expensive cook mad by postponing dinner a few minutes at a time. Marius felt a twinge of guilt. Grania had married him expecting a cozy life in Arpinum, with trips to the seaside. Instead, he had left her utterly unmoved for 25 years.
Grania!
Yes, dear.
In the tablinum, please. Shut the door. Sit down.
He sat like a judge, compelled her to sit like a client. He turned an ivory abacus over in his strong, square hands. Hands Grania had always loved. She stared at the stranger she had been married to for a quarter-century. Her mind was a fabric of rage, grief, and self-pity. But mostly it was just disappointment.
I am divorcing you.
Grania studied the bill of divorcement. It took a moment for the words to kindle.
I have done nothing to deserve this.
I disagree. You have not been a suitable wife.
And it has taken you 25 years to come to this conclusion.
No. I knew it from the beginning. It just didn't seem important at the time.
I see. I was never even important enough to divorce, so why now?
I want to marry again. I've been offered an alliance with a very old patrician house. This marriage means I will be consul.
The fire in Grania died, snuffed out by logic. How could one fight the inevitable?
I see. Who is she?
The elder daughter of Gaius Julius Caesar.
A Julia. That is looking high. You'll certainly be consul, Gaius Marius.
You have your dowry, of course. I've invested it well. It is very large now. I presume you'll want to live near your family, but at your age it's advisable to have your own house. Your father is dead, and your brother is paterfamilias.
You never slept with me often enough to give me a child. Oh, I wish I had a child.
Well, I'm damned glad you don't. Our son would be my heir, and a marriage to Julia couldn't have its significance. Be sensible, Grania. Children would be grown by now, living their own lives. Get yourself a lapdog.
A lapdog?
What you should do is marry again. I'm willing to buy you a villa at Cumae, close to Puteoli, but enough distance for peace. I'll deed you a life tenancy. Suitors will smother you like flies once they see how wealthy you are. Tell the steward. Think about which slaves you want. I'd appreciate it if you'd be out of here by the day after tomorrow. In the morning.
The morning, but...
Julia will want to make changes to the house. We marry in 8 weeks. I can't bring her here to inspect the place until you've gone. It wouldn't be proper.
Grania sat for a while, hardly believing what had just happened. She then called for the steward of the villa. A majestic Greek from Corinth arrived quickly.
Strophantes, the master is divorcing me. I must be gone by the day after tomorrow. Pack everything.
Certainly, Domina. Do you intend to take any of the staff?
The cook, all the kitchen servants, my serving girls, my seamstress, my hairdresser, and the page boys. I want them all.
Of course, Domina.
The steward bowed, hiding his amazement, hurried away, bursting with enthusiasm to share the gossip. The cook, a conceited master of the pots, would not be happy about trading the heights of Rome for a quiet villa in Puteoli.